Today I'm talking about my top 5 books that I wish I had read 20 years ago. And yeah, let's get it started. I'm John. I am one half of the Hardscape Nerds. Amanda is not here today. And I know you're wondering why Hardscape? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's because we scape so hard. All right, some of that. So now we're on to talking here. So number one book. Sorry, apologize about this. All right, so number one book is Getting Things Done by David Allen, and this book here is something that it's a bit of a misnomer. It's not getting. I can't say it's a misnomer. It's not getting more things done. It's just how to the subtitle really helps. The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words today. But this book really helps you stay stress-free when you're not really sure what to do. The number one thing, my number one takeaway from this book is you can only feel good about what you're doing when you know what you're not doing. So this is a concept of writing everything down. As soon as something hits your brain, you're making a note, setting it aside, and you are putting it in a place that a collected, trusted system, or a trusted, collecting system, and you're putting it in there and gathering it, and at a later time when you're functioning properly, because we're not functioning at 100% all the time like I am right now, but it helps you to gather all your information together, and then you set aside an amount of focus time during the week. You have to schedule it in. That's important, and you have to stick to it. Otherwise, the system falls apart. And you go through your projects list. And what is a project? A project, because a lot of times we will write down things like get tires, and you don't really get tires. You have to make a phone call to talk to the representative wherever you're going to get tires. If you might have to get the number first to actually find out what shop you're going to go to. So that really matters, and you have to boil things down to your next action. So that's very important, that moving forward, you always say, what's the next action on this? You can't just leave a meeting, leave anything, and not really be sure about what's happening and specifically what's the next action, because you can only do actions. You can't do anything else than that. So, and it's the next action is what is the next physical, visible step that you can take to moving this project forward. So this is a very kind of a brief, bad description of the book, but I strongly recommend it this is for any field. This is just any business owner. You don't even have to be a business owner, just anybody who basically does anything outside of just going to work and coming home. But even then, it'll help you become more organized, and just it helps you fight the feelings of procrastination. And because a lot of times procrastination is simply because we don't know exactly what we should be doing. So that is huge with that regard. So book one down. Okay, this next one is the E-Myth Revisited. There's the actual E-Myth original version, which is the same exact version as this, only it doesn't have the extra story to add on to this. I would recommend this one as opposed to the original. But this book is if I were to describe it in a word, it would be systems. This is about collecting and just organizing the things that you already do. Something that was a big problem for us is we wanted to figure out systems, and we kept talking about systems, and you hear that in so many business books. The problem is, what's a system? And I had someone in a mastermind group say that a system's just basically what you're already doing, and you just write it down. And you're just keeping it so it's standardized. You can change it. The system's not finite to where this is it, it's set in stone, and it's never changed. The idea is you write something down, you test it out, and you improve it. You don't. It should not be static. So it's always something to keep moving on. But you do want to do it. One of the things that we struggle with, that I think just about everybody struggles with, is you have to keep it standard. So if every single time a person calls your business, sometimes they're getting a happy person on the phone, sometimes a miserable person, sometimes the phone no one answers the phone. Whatever it is, you have to be consistent, and you really want to work as hard as you can to make it the best possible experience. But what you don't want to do is give them a superstar experience one week, and then the next time they call, maybe the next year or something, it's lousy. Then the time after that, it's okay, and they don't know what to get, and you're stealing. If you give them the great experience first, you're stealing that in subsequent visits every single time. You're stealing that from them, and that's not fair, and it's not a good way to run a business. And I'm sure you can think about different companies, different places you went to and said, man, that was so great the first time I went, and then you go back and it wasn't very good after that. And it's what happened, and it's a lot of times it's because they didn't have any sort of system. So they didn't have any documented process for anything. A lot of times you deal with this where in a lot of you're dealing with vendors, you're going to small places getting your block or whatever, and if the owner's not there, the whole order's never right. And so that's give them this book. That you don't want to be that business. You don't want the entire thing to rely on the owner. That's number one in any business. That's actually the detriment of knowing. Most entrepreneurs, we don't choose to get into the business. We usually work for somebody else and then say, you know what, I could do this better than where I'm at now. So then we give it a try. But we're not business owners. We have to learn that. That's huge. We have to learn that. But we're technicians, and as Michael Gerber says, we are technicians suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure, and that pretty adequately describes it. That's what we need to be focusing on is bringing ourselves out of the business a bit. One big thing about this book is if you read it and it's the first time you ever read it, you're going to feel like you need to take off the next 3 months and focus just on systems and systems. Well, Mike Michalowicz, we'll get to one of his books later, he met Michael Gerber in person, and this was a huge piece of advice for me. And he said that Mike Michalowicz said, the problem I have with the E-Myth is people think it's a light switch where it's just on or off, but in reality it should be like a throttle where you're pressing it, as needed. And that's a very good. I would totally agree with that criticism of this book. I had the same feeling to where I thought it was just let's go, and you kind of forsake the working in the business. If you're a small business, you can't just take yourself out. So don't be foolish and just start missing work and because you're working on the business. So that's a big misconception that seems to be pretty true. And yeah, so those are the big things with this one. So the E-Myth revisited by Michael Gerber, and yeah, this is a business classic. up next. This is a very good one. This explains to somebody who doesn't understand accounting, understand numbers in very practical terms. This is the book Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits from Greg Crabtree. He goes through and explains just fundamental principles from, he's a farmer, not an accountant, not a giant, he didn't grow up in a corporate structure or anything like that. So I think that helps, that his explanations are very, very down to earth, and that this has helped me understand finances better than anything. And when you are running a business, you absolutely have to understand finances. You absolutely have to understand accounting. You don't have to like it. You can still hire somebody to do it. You absolutely have to take an accounting class if you don't know how to balance your books. It's the number one thing in your business that will determine success or failure. If you don't understand the numbers, like everyone understands you can add and subtract, but if you don't understand the numbers in your business and what profit really is, and that's you're going to fail if you don't understand that. So I challenge you to online your local community college. They usually have online courses. One of the best decisions I ever made was I took accounting, and it was something I absolutely despised and hated, and I didn't understand it at all. And I took it and turned it into something to where my accountant says I'm one of his most sound clients, to where I understand it. I don't feel that way. I don't feel comfortable with it. I still don't after 20 years. But you have to understand it. And that's where I made the mistake of, I didn't try and learn that until, oh man, probably over 10 years, 15 years into owning a business. That was a huge mistake. And that's something that should have completely been started over, to do it the other way. You learn the finances. Even if you're going to work for somebody else, you still want to understand it. You still want to understand profit and loss statements. That thing's huge. If you're working for somebody else, you still need to know how money's generated. It sounds simple, but a lot of people think if I'm a worker and I make $27 an hour, then in my mind, I might think that that's all that I cost the company. But we need to know exactly what does that worker actually cost. He costs a lot more than $27 an hour to the company. So we have to make sure that we're adequately charging for that, so that we're not going broke with every job that we do. So that's a phrase from in here, that a lot of times these businesses, they grow broke. They think they're growing and they're not profitable, but they keep trying to grow and they just run out of cash. So you have to pay attention to that. One of my favorite lines from here is, like I said, he's from down on the farm. Says you can have milk every day, or you can have one barbecue. So that's about selling the business or keeping it, because a lot of these books are build it to sell it, and that's the philosophy. But why would you get rid of your cash cow? If you build your business properly, it should be bringing you in revenue as an owner. So it's foolish to build to sell unless there's some reason taking you out of it. I don't see a reason to build to sell. That to me seems a little bit silly, and so that's his argument against it also. So you can have milk every day, or you can have one barbecue. That's a pretty good one to me. All right. Next, we have Profit First. I don't think there's any book that has helped us understand, or that has helped us actually turn a profit better than this book right here. I struggle with the word profit, and thinking, for years I thought it was like a bad word. I know a lot of people don't struggle with that. I always did. I felt it was wrong to make money. I don't know why. I have some issue with it. And this made me understand the reason for it for one, we need to have profit. Even non-profit operations need a profit. If they make zero profit at a non-profit, they will be defunct. You have to have profit. If you don't have profit, you're going to go under. It's going to be terrible, and yeah, you don't want to mess with that. What this book does is it's let me finish this. Profit First from Mike Michalowicz. What he does in this concept, the concept of this book is we are a society of finish your plate. We were always told to finish your plate. It's not good to waste your food. So we took that same mentality as people that we were kind of instilled from our parents and our grandparents to clean our plate. We do that with spending without realizing it. When we have $1,000 in the bank, there's an urge to spend $1,000. It's very tough to not spend that money. The phrase burning a hole in your pocket. That it's very difficult to not spend that. What this is doing is the concept of basically use smaller plates. So instead of just having one bank account where all of your stuff is lumped in, you're actually creating 5 bank accounts where you have separate accounts. And it's a little bit more work, not a lot, and you create 5 different bank accounts, or how many ever you want, but they're for a specific purpose, and that way all of your money is not lumped in. So you don't have $20,000. It looks like you have $20,000 in the bank, but you don't. Once you start breaking that stuff down, you're going to realize that, okay, this is for bills that have already been paid, and some of this is for client deposits, and you absolutely never want to spend a client deposit for a job that you're doing now. If there's one piece of advice I can ever give to anybody, you never want to spend money from a client deposit from a job that you just signed today. You never want to spend that before you start that job. That is borrowing money with your client's money. That is a terrible, you're on the verge of going out of business. If that's your business practice, you will be going out of business soon. You might be able to last for 2 more years. If you do, it's a miracle. You do not want to be borrowing money from your customers. It's a terrible thing, because then what happens is you start getting desperate and you start undercharging because you need the cash flow, and you start giving stuff away, and then each job you do, you're losing more profit on, and you're ending up just sinking further and further. Basically, you're digging yourself a hole that eventually you just can't get out of. Never do that. So that's one of the biggest things that we do, is we have client deposits account. We don't touch that. We set that money aside until we start that job, or if we started accruing expenses for it, like we paid for block in advance or whatever, and we're writing checks, then we can move the money over. But other than that, if we only use money for each customer's job, and that's it. So that is, to me, the biggest thing that helped us is now it's all separate. I see it right there. We renamed the account in QuickBooks. We renamed it in our banking software. It says client deposits. I know that that's not my money. It is not my money. It's not. I can't use it to pay for block. I can't use it to pay for my truck payment. It's not my money. Until we actually do that job, it's not mine. So that's huge. So one of the biggest things about this is with the profit with us, or with the book itself, we took 10. You start taking a percentage of profit, and what you do is you start hiding it from yourself. You make it small enough when you start. I recommend just doing it at 1%. Start up a second account at another bank, and you just start transferring 1% of every dollar that comes in. And then what happens is you eventually will start having profit accrue, but you're not supposed to use that for other stuff. Profit is not really for anything else other than technically the owners. So you have to be very careful you don't say you're reinvesting it back. That's a very dangerous thing too. Sometimes you want to do that, that's fine, but it just, you have to know where that's coming from. But most landscapers, hardscapers, we are the second most failed industry next to restaurants. We really have to pay attention. Lack of profitability is the number one thing that messes with our that runs people out of business. So it's not knowing how to price jobs properly is the main reason, but that leads to a lack of profits. What this does is you're hiding that money from yourself, so you'll start using less money. If you had less money in the bank, you would figure out how to become more efficient. And I will tell you, this system works 100%. We started moving money away, and you ratchet it up a little bit at a time, and we've been increasing our profitability from that. And what we set aside as our profit percentage coincidentally looks exactly what it shows on our P&L for the end of the year. The P&L is a profit and loss statement. You have to understand what that is. If you don't, you have to learn. Reach out. I'll gladly teach you. So you want to make sure that that you have a profit at the end of the year. If you're not making a profit, you're going to be in serious trouble. Another tip when talking about profit, you're not profitable if you're not paying yourself a wage. If you're the owner, you're the sole proprietor, maybe there's two of you in the field or something, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're not big either. If you're not paying yourself the same to work in the field that you would be paying another worker, you can't call that profit. That is absolutely not profit. That's basically, you're stealing from yourself. You're stealing from your family. So you have to pay attention to that. So you have to know, and you do need some profit. Otherwise, you will never be able to grow the business, because that's how you grow. So I could go on for this, but yeah. So I think I covered everything with this. So I could do a whole episode just on this book. So yeah, this one's pretty good. And then this is super thorough. This is How to Price Landscape and Irrigation Projects by James R. Houston. He's a consultant in the industry. He you notice I'm holding this one down a little lower. It's a pretty heavy book. This is a full-on textbook. He toured around the country with Vanderkoy. That's how I believe he got his start. So he is quite familiar with landscape estimating processes. He's been in the industry for a really long time. He's a very good consultant, and he's helped train us with a lot of to understand a lot of the things that we know now. I would strongly recommend, if you're in the green industry, landscape, hardscape, that you buy this book. This is well worth the investment. That's the number one thing that we do, is we don't want to spend any money. Oh, we'll figure it out, or I don't need that book. I believe you do. I believe everybody should have this. If you're going to an ICPI, NCMA, now they're combined. If you're going and spending money for a course for installation, you absolutely need this for the business owner, 100%. So I think it's like $150 for the book. A fraction of what you're going to get out of it. So yeah, this is something that I wish I would have bought and read a lot sooner. This is something that and then we bought it, and I didn't actually read it for a while. And so shame on me. And I can't believe how much stuff is in here and how simple it is broken down. They're very small lessons. Each one, there's like 55 lessons in here, but they're very bite-sized, to where you can go through one a week and really just have a much better grasp on your business. So yeah, this is something I do not believe you should be without. And for comparison's sake, a lot of people talk about Charles Vanderkoy. This is his book, so you can see how much thinner this is. There's not as much information in here. This, if you're starting out, and even if you're in the industry, this is way thicker. There's way more information in here. It's more detailed. Jim's a very detailed guy, and I would absolutely recommend this book. So this is the number one thing. I kind of did these in order of importance that I feel that I wish I would have read earlier, much earlier in my career. So if I would have known this stuff 20 years earlier, oh man, we'd be in a lot better shape. So can't go back. The next best thing I can do is try and help other people. So this whole podcast, everything we're doing here, it's to help myself 20 years ago. So that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing all the things that I wish I would have known 20 years ago. So here's another bonus book. This is the Bible. This is in particular the book of Proverbs. I find that there's a lot of good information. Just it's kind of something you can almost skim, and there's a lot of sound wisdom in there about business, surprisingly. So I thought that was interesting. Zig Ziglar talks about reading the Bible, the red letter version, where the words of Christ are in red, and he talks about just how that's one of the best sales books you can have. So I thought that was interesting. I've never really read it through with that focus, but that's his take on it, and he was a pretty good salesman. So okay, yeah. So we're at, let's see. So Proverbs 12:15, the way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. Thank you both for listening. Be sure to share this with your in-laws, your outlaws, that friend who doesn't appreciate personal space. They sure won't bother you anymore.